We're all in the press pen, of course, going live and beginning to describe what exactly was happening. We were there for probably 10 to 15 minutes after it happened, and then we were told it was an active crime scene, and then all of the press, all of those in attendance were quickly evacuated. So there was a few moments where there was just a lot of uncertainty, and there wasn't necessarily an escorting of everyone out. It was not declared an official crime scene yet, and there were just moments that were truly quite harrowing because we were not sure what exactly had happened. The former president pretty quickly had exited, and then there were a lot of us just left there for a while, but then they declared it an official crime scene. They exited all the crowd, all the press out of it. We are now standing in the parking lot. Again, this is all in Butler, Pennsylvania, where this is taking place. We're standing in the parking lot. There are plenty of law enforcement now on the scene. There are a lot of cars you can see behind me that are trying to exit the facility. Everyone here now is safe. I do want to, again, read that Trump campaign statement that we have from Stephen Chung, the Trump spokesperson, that says, President Trump thanks law enforcement and first responders for their quick action during the heinous act. He is fine and is being checked at a local medical facility. More details will follow. That's about what we have now. That's the scene that I witnessed with my own eyes. Again, we're now standing in the parking lot here in Butler, Pennsylvania. There are crowds of people being escorted out. There are a ton of Trump supporters that are shouting, pray for President Trump, pray for President Trump. There are also truly, Chris, just a lot of questions from a lot of people as we are trying to figure out more about what is happening. There was that, besides that one statement we had from the Trump campaign, we've not had more updates there quite yet. Of course, as we continue to get them, we will continue to update. But that's what I was able to see on the ground here. We are safe. It was, again, quite the harrowing event, Chris. But as of now, we're in the parking lot. We're safe, and we'll continue to report on this as we have more.
It's good to know everyone appears to be safe, and of course, including the former president. But Jake, keep us posted as you learn more, or if you have an opportunity to get any information or observations from other people who were in that crowd today. We are starting to get statements coming in, and you heard Jake say that there are a number of people he's spoken to who say they are praying for former President Trump. There are statements from the Democratic leaders in both houses. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, says, I am horrified by what happened at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania and relieved that former President Trump is safe. Political violence has no place in our country. And from Hakeem Jeffries, my thoughts and prayers are with former President Trump. I am thankful for the decisive law enforcement. America is a democracy. Political violence of any kind is never acceptable. And the governor of Pennsylvania, again, all unfolded in Butler, Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro wrote, violence targeted at any political party or political leader is absolutely unacceptable. It has no place in Pennsylvania or the United States. I've been briefed on the situation. State police are on the scene in Butler County and working with our federal and local law enforcement. Joining me now to continue this live coverage, MSNBC national security analyst Clint Watts. He is also a former FBI special agent. Just watching what happened and how it unfolded, what are your observations and what do you expect is happening right now? We know that the area has already been locked down as a crime scene.
A couple things, Chris. One, you notice that the crowd all pans. So, as you're looking at them, they turn to the right. That's where you see former President Trump grab his ear and also look that way. The other thing is the gunshots that you hear, or what we think might be gunshots. There are a variety of types there, and it's very difficult to make much from that. One thing you do hear in that audio that you did play is they said shooter down. So one of the textbook things that you see there, and the Secret Service did a remarkable job on this, that you can tell how they responded to it is exactly how they trained. They did not move the former president until it seemed like they thought the situation was under control. So they must have had some sort of communication going on there before they picked up to move. They also did that very, very quickly. Thankfully, former President Trump looks to be, while likely injured, in very good shape considering the circumstance. I think the other thing is it's really going to call into question what the security situation was at this. One of the things that everyone will probably be asking, and I definitely would like to know, is what kind of magnetometers or other security processes were used for people that went to this event, or was this person really, whoever the shooter might have been, of whatever the device was, were they outside of a perimeter? How did they make their way into it if they did? So that'll be one of the key questions. And as you noted, as an active crime scene, I'm sure they're trying to figure all of those dimensions out, probably going through every piece of camera and TV footage as possible, trying to narrow down everything that happened there in the last few minutes.
And I'm sure you heard me read the statement from Josh Shapiro saying not only are state police on the scene, they're working with federal and local law enforcement. Who would be involved in this and who takes the lead in a case like this, Clint?
The Secret Service, I would imagine, would take the immediate lead in the investigation because that is their mandate, is to protect the president and everything around him. The FBI would be the natural point of contact for also running any additional leads, and then state and local law enforcement, which were probably already on the scene, assisting in terms of building that cordon, keeping everything safe. Because in any of these incidents, you just don't know. Just like all of the active shooter cases that we talk about on air here, you just don't know if it was one shooter, multiple shooters, were there accomplices, were there other things going, or were there other plans to maybe do a more extended attack. So they're going to be really spanning out around this location, trying to figure out every dimension of it, and also collect evidence. One thing will be to interview any witnesses that saw the person that was shooting whatever weapon it was, and try and understand how this unfolded, if there were any associates or anybody else that were traveling with them, and were there any indications, over time of what this plot was and why this person did it.
If you could stay with us, please. I also want to bring in Christopher O'Leary, former FBI agent. And Christopher, I wonder what your observations are as you're watching the scene unfold, as we've been playing this video over again.
Yeah, so I think Clint hit on it. It's speculation if it was gunfire or not, although in my experience, that sounds a lot like it, and it sounds like it could have been multiple calibers. And with the addition of the secret, or the call out that the shooter was down, it indicates that the Secret Service likely immediately responded to whatever happened. And that's what they train to do. They are the best in the world at protection. I would venture to say that their procedures in this rally are the same that they are in every other event that they do. Everybody would have been screened going in. The president was likely put behind the podium because it's a ballistic podium, and they would pause him there until they had the situation under control, and then immediately evacuate him. And he's at a hospital that they already pre-cleared. So they had a route that was already run to that hospital. They know that they had trauma surgeons there if they were needed, and Secret Service agents standing by at that hospital to immediately address what the situation was. With regard to the investigation, as Clint said, the first and foremost, the Secret Service has the lead in this, unless or until we find out that there is a motivation of political violence or terrorism. If this is a mentally ill individual, like the attack on President Reagan, it will stay absolutely in the Secret Service lane. If it turns out to be somebody who's involved in terrorism or political violence, then it will certainly bring all the resources of the FBI in, and the FBI will take a more leading role in this.
All right, if you could stay with us as well, Christopher, I want to bring NBC News campaign embed Jake Traylor back from Butler, Pennsylvania. Jake, Clint brought up a good question, so I want to ask you what your observations were when you arrived on scene earlier today, wondering what the security setup was. Were there mags or other security? What did security look like for folks who were attending that rally?
Yeah. Chris, that's a great question. What I can say is things appeared very normal at this rally from the start. The way things work for those that typical Trump rally, especially because he is in fact a former president. There is a ton of Secret Service that is involved with that. It is a very lengthy process. The preset for media happened early this morning. Then a little bit later, there was the normal sweeps where the entire arena, all of the press equipment, all of the cameras, all of the seats, all of the field is then checked and swept like normal by the Secret Service. I have zero indication of that being any normal this time around. As far as I know, and from my conversation with the Trump campaign during and throughout the day, those that are involved with the press advance and taking care of all those things, everything appeared to be normal. We were not given any alarm or any guard as to this being a different event. I'd also note, too, that many of Trump's rallies take place outdoors at something just like this. So it's often outdoors. This was at, again, Butler Farms here in Pennsylvania. There have been others that have taken place at farmland like this, open pastures, open area. There's also very clearly and very evidently Secret Service all around, often Secret Service on certain elevated spaces, often Secret Service surrounding the press pin, surrounding the stage, in all different areas. That all seemed to be normal. So back to the timeline, we, after the Secret Service fully swept the location, residents, attendees, Trump supporters, those in attendance today were able to enter for the first time into this rally. That takes a very long time. They are going through MAG security, that they are getting waved down. There are Secret Service, there are police officers. officer. Many on hand. No indication, again, that was any different today. And then, of course, yeah.
I want to join Lester Holt for a special report that's in progress. We have some new information. Let's join in. All right, we're having some audio problems, but Clint, I'm going to come back to you because the reporting we're getting from our Tom Winter, who is incredibly deeply sourced in the intelligence community, is that there is growing concern in law enforcement circles that this may, and I want to emphasize the word may, have been a serious attempt on the life of former President Donald J. Trump. That is according to two senior U.S. law enforcement officials. Would they have approached it that way from the beginning anyway? Does that change the calculus? What would lead them to believe that? Help us out as somebody who has been on the inside of very high level incidents, Clint.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's probably too early to tell. They would approach it as the most severe situation just because there's very little to know or very little to go off of. The other thing, you just can't tell much from the audio in terms of the weapons and the shots, whatever it was that was used. It's really difficult to know what that was being fired at President Trump. Second part is it connected to anything larger? That would be a much more serious investigation. And so
So let's go back to the special report where Tom Winter is addressing some of the information that he's getting from inside the intel community. Let's listen.
Apparently shot there. Now a crime scene. So what you're seeing is, in fact, a crime scene. The Secret Service likely to lead that investigation. But Tom, we've all talked about it. We've seen examples of it, political violence. This is something that law enforcement has been bracing itself for in this campaign season, is it not?
Without a doubt, Lester, I have lost track of the amount of times you and I have talked about it privately in the offices. We've reported on it. The FBI director, in an interview with you directly, said that he was concerned about this type of thing, Lester. And so I think everybody's been concerned about the potential issues, the potential things that could come up during the course of this election, given how divided the country is, given the level of threats. And so that's something that people are acutely focused on, for sure.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. I'll let you get back to your reporting and working out more details as this story develops here tonight. Let's bring in Evie Pomporis, a former Secret Service agent, joining me on the telephone right now. Can you give us a sense from what you have seen, give us your professional eye of what appears to transpire here?
Yes, so what we're seeing is him attending a rally, speaking at the rally, and then we hear the shots. It almost sounds like these soft popping sounds. So we hear these multiple shots. We see him put his hand to his ear, and then you see the agents that come in. Those agents that come in are the shift. It's his detail team. For them to come in like that, that means this is a serious threat. Something serious happened. We're also seeing the tactical team, and we're looking at the live shot. The shot of the tactical team. That's the element that comes in. When you see the tactical team, their job is to look for the threat. So you have two entities here. The agents in suits, they're the shift. Shift comes in, immediately comes on top of the president, and they are there to surround him and to make sure that the shots hit them. The tactical element that we see come in after, their job is to move out, and we see them facing out toward the crowd, and they are to look for the threat. Clearly, we see the agents that get around him, they shield him, and then they move in this unison to shield him body-wise so that nothing strikes him. They move him slowly down the stairs and make their way to the armored vehicles. That's what we're looking at. Now, Lester, if we're looking at how did this happen, again, this is all alleged, nothing's been confirmed. But if we're looking at what's going on here, what went, and it's soon to say, but how does such a thing happen? When you have rallies like this, ideally, you're supposed to have magnetometers. So that's going to be the first thing they're going to look at. Were there magnetometers, right? How did this weapon get in? Sometimes when it's a former president, you may not have all the elements that a sitting president would have, right? All the tactical capabilities. So it's going to be, how did that weapon get in? Were there magnetometers? Were people checked for weapons? And then from that point, where was that person positioned, right? How were they able to get in and get that angle of a shot?
As we look at these pictures again, as you described, the former president being rushed into that vehicle to be taken away from the scene, I keep thinking about what's happening in the crowd. Unfortunately, the cameras aren't pointing on the crowd, but given the number of pops or potential shots we heard, it seems a lot of people were at risk. You've covered these events, no doubt, as have I. A lot of people wanting to get close to their candidate. That's part of what happens in a campaign. How does the Secret Service draw the balance there as to create, a fortress of security at the same time, allowing people to do what people should be doing at rallies like this?
So let's go to your first point where there's people there. When you do these events, and I've done these events, it's called a site advance. When you secure an event like this, you're the site agent. So you have two goals, two missions. I am to protect the President of the United States, right? However, the other goal or mission is the people at this event. So yes, they're targeting, or let's assuming, right, that again, we don't have confirmation. But when someone is targeting the President, right, if they're going to shoot, yes, he's an issue, but also the people in the area are an issue, right? Where are all these rounds going? So when we hear these sounds, these small, these echoes of what appeared to be shots, it wasn't one shot. There were multiple shots, and every round, Lester, has to go somewhere. It lands somewhere. Where are they going? So you've got all these people. So you are responsible not just for the safety of the U.S. president, but you are responsible for the people there. The president, think of him as he's a target, right? Wherever he moves, danger goes with him just because of what he attracts as a sitting U.S. president or a former president or a candidate. So when you put them in a place like this, you also have to think strategically, what about all the people there? Now, you'll see the barricades that are set up. You see the stage that's set up. What you may not see in that shot is you will have ingress and egress elements. That means you want multiple ways in and multiple ways out. So you want movement for the president. You also want to create an alternate movement for him if he can't get out the primary way. So we've got typically at least two ways in, two ways out. And those vehicles that are staged there, they are positioned there specifically to evacuate him. Because also you're in an open area here, right?
Right.
So you don't have that concealment to cover. You have, whenever you do an open area like this, massive line of sight issues, meaning you can get the threat from so many different ways, so many different areas. And just one thing to touch on too, typically after an event like this, it's typically the FBI who comes in to do the investigation of what happened, right? So it's the Secret Service element is the element that does a protection, and the FBI typically is who's going to come in to investigate what and how did this happen.
Abby, let me ask you this. In terms of what kind of intelligence law enforcement has or is campaign season. These candidates are out there doing sometimes multiple stops in a day, big crowds lined up. How much does local law enforcement know about potential threats? Maybe somebody in the crowd who has written a nasty email or a letter or that sort of thing.
They do. When you go out, a part of the advance team, when you go out, you work with the local police department. So here he's going to his location, right? He's going to a town, to a city, wherever he's going. You work from the beginning. You have many meetings with the local police department. The president, former president's coming in. He's going to do a rally, and we share intel. The U.S. Secret Service shares their intel. This is what we're hearing from our side. The local police department, typically because they know what's going on in their community, they're also going to have their ears to the ground. They're going to have intelligence and information. And then we have these meetings. The Secret Service will have these meetings before an event where everybody comes together and everybody shares. I'm hearing this. You're hearing this. What do we need to do? What elements do we need to put in place? So if you're hearing there's a lot of protesters, you're hearing talk that people are going to show up and cause problems, that is all communicated so that you can figure out what you need. And also you can figure out what assets to put into the crowd to blend in. You're seeing the Secret Service suits, you're seeing the tactical team, you'll see uniforms for police department, but they also have an element there that is the unseen. We don't call them undercovers, but there's those agents and law enforcement who will circulate in the area in plain clothes and kind of lend their ear out and hear what's going on.
All right, Evie, you have been a tremendous help helping us understand the mechanics of security in a situation like this. Hopefully we can rely on you again to talk a bit later, but thank you so much. We continue to look at the video, the shocking video, frankly, from Pennsylvania, where earlier this evening, early evening here on the East Coast, someone apparently took shots at the former President Trump. As we heard two senior law enforcement officials saying, there is a growing concern that there may have been a serious attempt on the life of former President Trump. Apparently his wounds are survivable. He's apparently doing okay, but we saw him clutching his ear, a bloodied ear, as he was led from the scene. People heard multiple pops in the crowd. We are continuing to track information we can about any potential other victims in this, people who might have been in that crowd. This was a rally unlike pretty much like so many we have seen throughout this election season. People joyous, people excited about seeing the candidate, hearing what he had to say. Nobody signed up for this, however. I want to go to NBC's Dasha Burns, just outside that Trump rally north of Pittsburgh. Dasha, you were there as the crowds were trying to get out. As you watch the video, of course, your eyes are focused on former President Trump and his reaction, but you're also seeing people in the crowd who seem unaware, don't quite realize what's happening. I suppose that's not unusual. As you were able to exit the grounds, were people beginning to fill in some of the blanks of what they saw and heard?
Yeah, Lester, absolutely. There was a lot of confusion initially. You don't expect something like this to happen going in. There's so much security protocol when you come to a Trump rally. And as we were first hearing those sounds, so many people that I've talked to, myself included, our team here, thought it might have been fireworks. We weren't sure what was going on. Now, as everyone has taken a bit of a breath and is trying to absorb what happened, we now understand that that's not necessarily the case. We are coming to you live right now from the parking lot for this venue. Trump rallies attract thousands and thousands of supporters. There are thousands of cars here. And Lester, we are running into people who have evacuated the rally, are looking for their vehicles and trying to process what just happened. That's how I ran into Aaron here. Aaron was in the front row there near the former president. Aaron, first of all, are you okay? How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I was in the first row. I was directly in front of Trump, my seat. I was looking him in the eye. We heard the pops, maybe 3 minutes into the rally, 3 to 4 minutes. I heard 4 pops, pop, pop, pop. The 4 Secret Service immediately jumped on the stage, and we saw him push President Trump to the ground. Then the gentlemen that have the guns came up to start clear right, clear left. They said, get him up. So they lifted him up, and Trump said, I got to get my shoes on first.
Did his shoes come off?
His shoes must have, we couldn't see it underneath that, but his shoes must have come off when they dropped him down to the ground. First thing he said, we could all hear it. I have to get my shoes on first. And when he stood up, I'm looking at him forward, I see the red teardrop right here of blood, fresh red blood, just a little tear. Then when they got him up and they turned him, I could see the blood from the top of the ear to the bottom. It wasn't gushing, but it was covered. And then he put the fist bump up, stay strong, and they walked him off.
Aaron, what was going through your mind? What did you think when you first heard those sounds?
I thought this did what you just said. I thought it was fireworks, 4th of July. It's been pop, pop, pop. That's what it sounded like. Well, the gentleman behind me, I was one seat. He was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. Now, when I called my husband at home, who's watching TV, he said, I thought Trump hurt his ear when he went to the ground. But he said, no, on TV they showed before Trump hit the ground, the ear was bleeding. So that sharpshooter went across, Trump turned his head, his ear must have been nipped, and it killed somebody in the stands over to the left.
Could you see anyone injured besides the blood on the former president?
All I saw was the gentleman from Beaver County who spoke earlier in the day. He was running for the State House Representative, Elmore, I know his name. He had a white shirt on, and I saw him come from that left stands where the people were mostly shot. I think there was several. They said 3 medevacs left here. Blood was down the right side of his. He wasn't shot, but you could see that he was next to somebody who must have been bleeding profusely. because he either helped them and ran, rubbed against them or tried to get them help or something. It was covered. So I knew that he was near somebody. That was my first indication that somebody was actually shot when I saw his blood on his shirt.
Erin, when did you realize that, hey, this might not be fireworks, this might be something else?
When they got Trump down on the ground. We were just so concerned that he wasn't hit because we couldn't. It happened so fast. It's really hard to process it. I guess if you have it on your camera to see the exact minute, you can tell. But when he got up, he did not look bad at all. He didn't. He looked very strong. So then I saw that little bit. When I saw that blood, I thought, oh, he must have just hurt himself, hopefully. But it does appear that he was probably nicked by that bullet. That
and Erin
turned his head just in the nick of time, but just.
And Erin, you were so near to all of this yourself. You were right there. How did you personally feel about your own safety? Were you scared? What was that experience?
I was totally not scared for my own. None of us in that front row went down to the ground. Not a one. We wanted to only help the president. That's all we wanted to do. Either we could protect him, we could stand around him. I didn't see one person in the row hit the ground. Not one. I was shocking. No one was concerned about us. We were only concerned about him.
Now, you're somewhere safe. You're out of there. As you're starting to process this, I know we'll all be processing this over the coming days and weeks. How are you feeling now in this moment?
Well, what I've heard coming out here is now they feel that there was two shooters on both sides. So they got the one on the tower on this side, but the one on the right side they never got. So that's why they wanted us to leave immediately, because they thought there's still a shooter out there somewhere. So there could be in these woods around Butler.
So, Erin, I've covered many Trump rallies. I don't know how many you've been to.
My sixth. This is yours. I was here. I was the fourth car in the parking lot this morning at 20 to 7. So I've worked all day.
You've been here all day.
I knew you were NBC.
We're here. Look, the atmosphere coming into a Trump rally, the supporters, very jovial, very celebratory. Typically, people are selling merchandise, food. What were you coming in with today, and what are you leaving with tonight?
Well, I was here 4 years ago when he was in Butler. It was like 58,000 people. I tell people it was the most magical night of my life. When he came on that helicopter and circled 2 times, he had 4 rallies that night. It was just an unbelievable night. And I was anticipating to be another unbelievable night, but not this way. And it's just very sad. I mean, all these people that came to see him and to have him hurt.
If you see something to say,
I can't even describe it, I just feel sad. I feel sad for our country. I feel sad for everybody, I mean, you don't like the guy, don't vote for him. Don't kill him. We love the guy. We're going to vote for him. I mean, what is up with his violence? I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, I just wish that people I'm glad that guy's no longer with us anymore in that tower. And I hope they get the other one too. And I hope they don't nick him. I hope they get him and he's down.
Erin, thank you so much. I'm so glad. No, I'm so glad you're safe. I know it's a lot. Absolutely.
A lot of people knew that Trump's shoes must have fallen off.
The shoes, a new detail. And Lester, of course, this is an eyewitness account. We don't have those details confirmed. This is what Erin witnessed from her vantage point. We will wait for law enforcement to give us those details. But again, this is a developing situation. And right now, Erin and so many others just trying to make their way home, as there are thousands of people who were in this parking lot. Quite a bit of a traffic jam at this point as people are trying to make their way out. And of course, Lester, makes sense of what it is that they just witnessed.
Yeah, Dasha, thank you for your continued great reporting there as we get these accounts, and it bears reiterating. Look, folks, there are things that we're hearing, things we're learning. We will tell them to you when we can confirm them. Obviously, the witnesses have been describing potentially other victims in this, and we continue to work that angle very aggressively as we know more. We'll tell you about this, the same in terms of what we will hopefully be able to learn about who was behind this attack. As soon as we can tell you something we can verify, we will go right to that. Our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, joins us now. Kelly, talk to me about reaction from the Biden administration, obviously watching this with great concern tonight.
Well, Lester, there are important steps that the administration takes at this point. The current president has been briefed by the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, and of course, her agents were with former President Trump, are getting direct information from the scene to the president. In addition, the president has been talking with his Secretary of Homeland Security and his Homeland Security advisor inside the White House. That, of course, is Alejandro Mayorkas, the secretary at the cabinet level, and Liz Sherwood Randall, who advises the president on potential homeland threats inside the United States. In this moment, it is not candidate and candidate. This is the sitting president having to deal with the law enforcement piece, the national security implications, and sort of the mindset of the nation when an event like this happens. So the president is getting those threads of information coming into him. He is in Delaware right now. The vice president has also received an initial briefing. And certainly we are also hearing from others who have had their own experience and still do with the Secret Service. Former President George W. Bush putting out a statement saying that he and Laura Bush are grateful to the Secret Service that they were able to get former President Trump to safety. And they're concerned, of course, about what this incident was about. And they thank first responders for their swift action. So all the apparatus of the federal government shifts to deal with something like this. The Secret Service is involved in the investigation. They are also, of course, involved in the day-to-day protection of the former president. I have been told, based on my reporting, that the level of protection that he would receive as a former president, which has been his existence these last 3.5 years, heading into the convention in Milwaukee, he would be getting a larger detail as the presumptive candidate going forward. So expecting already plans in the works for him to have a more robust set of agents and procedures around him. They're also, of course, waiting to envelop the new running mate to be named at some point, and that person would also have Secret Service protection when former President Trump announces his pick. What happened today rattles the very core of the Secret Service. They do train for this. They are dealing with this potential threat at every event all the time. Here at the White House, where I am right now, no visible sign of any enhanced security. They are focused on certainly the events surrounding the former president at that location. It would also include state and local authorities who would be on the ground participating in the investigation, which would typically be led by the FBI. So as far as any contact from the president, he's got a team of senior advisors around him who are able to give him direct information from the Secret Service as well as the Department of Justice, law enforcement, and importantly, those Homeland Security advisors, both at the cabinet level and inside the White House, who may have more of a picture about potential threats or concerns that our colleague Tom Winter was talking about. That's where we are at this point from the White House, Lester.
Kelly O'Donnell, thank you very much. Excuse me. The good news is, again, we saw the former president leaving, getting into the car, pretty much under his own power, certainly supported and escorted to safety. But he looks like he will be okay. And once again, flashing that triumphant fist that is characteristic of many of his campaigns. For those of you just tuning in, we want to play for you the moment when Secret Service agents rushed former President Trump off the stage. We want to caution you, though, we don't know exactly who said what's captioned on the screen or why they said it, because it was such a chaotic moment, but here it is.
Are we good? Shooters down! Shooters down! Are we good to move?
We're clear!
Let's move! Let's move!
We're clear!
And again, that moment of chaos, you hear the screams in the crowd as people are beginning to learn that something is amiss there. Our investigative correspondent, Tom Winter, is with us on the phone. He continues to get reaction and national security details. What can you tell us now?
Lester, while I'm on the phone with you, one of my colleagues is on the phone with the local district attorney in that county who tells NBC News that the alleged shooter, the person they believe responsible for this event, is in fact deceased. So again, to repeat, the local district attorney in the area where the Trump rally is telling one of our colleagues right now that in fact the alleged shooter, the person they believe to be responsible for this, is deceased. We do not yet have a name or identity of that individual. We don't know their background, where they may have come from, any sort of personal motivations. That's information we're still trying to gather. But that's the headline. The second component of this, 3 senior U.S. law enforcement officials tell myself and colleague Jonathan Deans that there appear to have been, or they're looking into whether or not several other individuals were shot that were in the crowd. Those are not individuals suspected to be involved in this. Those were either rally goers or bystanders, but they're looking into whether at least 2 other individuals were shot as well. So that's the latest update that would seem to indicate to us a couple of things. One, they believe they know who did this. They believe they know where they were, potentially what they were using, and they can now start to do a lot of detailed investigative work. We don't know, although there is no indication at this time, that any other individual was involved. But obviously, it's very early and very preliminary on that front, and a lot more work will presumably need to be done.
Yeah, let me just follow up on that. I think you may have answered the question, but we did hear from one witness a bit earlier who seemed to believe that there were 2 individuals involved. You're saying that the local DA is saying 1 shooter is deceased. So the belief is that it is a single shooter?
The belief at this time is that that's the case, because what they said was that the person they believe is responsible is deceased. So they did not indicate that there were any other individuals. But that's, again, Lester, as you well know, we're less than 2 hours into this, and so there's a lot of information, a lot of things that are fluid on the ground. And just because this individual may or may not have been assisted by others at this rally, did they have any sort of help in any other way? Those are big questions that will be answered in the next couple of minutes or hours. Typically, based on past events, as you know, this is usually just 1 individual that's involved. But of course, investigators have to keep their minds open. And as reporters who are relying on that information, the investigation that is going on in our own homework, well, we're keeping our minds open too.
And Tom, you and your team certainly have a huge depth of experience in these kind of breaking news matters, especially when they involve issues like what we're seeing play out here. Is it likely this thing is going to unfold very quickly, that they will work backwards from the moment of the shooting and have a pretty good idea of what they're dealing with?
So let's take for law enforcement worst case scenario with respect to the investigation. If this individual had no identity on him, no sort of background, the FBI would be able to instant fingerprint him at the scene. They would be able to get information, and either that way they'd look into facial recognition to see if they could identify him in any sort of government database. From there, you might know where the individual lives, any relatives. They will comb through every inch and ounce of his social media. They will have the ability to go to social media companies and ask for an emergency warrant, and they will most certainly be granted to get access to those communications, cell phone communications, text communications.
Right, Tom?
All of that will be part of the instant investigation.
I apologize to ask you a question, then I have to interrupt you, but we are getting some confirmation. The Butler County DA is now telling us that one spectator has died in this incident. 1 has been apparently wounded and is in critical condition, and the shooter, as Tom has been reporting, is dead. So to repeat that news, and this comes via the Butler County DA, 1 spectator at this Trump rally is dead. Another is in critical condition, and the shooter, what we believe right now at this hour, the lone shooter, is also dead. And as our colleague Tom Winter was reporting, they will work very quickly and work backwards, and will likely know a lot about this individual in a short amount of time. You see former President Trump trying to acknowledge the crowd while being obviously stunned and being led to the safety of an armored vehicle, but it appears that he is okay, suffering what we've all been able to see, some sort of a graze-type wound to his ear. We hear him, asking for his shoes. He is led away. He continues to turn toward the crowd to offer a sense of assurance that he is okay. And he is now clear of that scene as people continue to leave, all of them telling stories of hearing these pops. Some of them, one woman we had on was able to describe the shooter. Now that we've got that confirmed, her account certainly jibes with what we're getting now from the officials in Butler County, Pennsylvania, and that is the crowd here trying to trying to rally their spirits. And certainly this was several minutes apparently into the former president's rally there in Pennsylvania when this occurred. Multiple what sounded like shots, pops, but we presume there were gunshots fired in his direction as he was looking to the right, and a little unclear. He grabs his ear, and then you can see this team of Secret Service agents can quickly swarm him, confirm that he is clear, out of danger, the risk nullified, and then he is escorted to his vehicle and to safety. That area you're looking at right now is a crime scene. We've seen subsequent pictures where you see the police crime tape, and they will treat it as any other crime scene and try to get the details of this. We don't know what this means in terms of the exact injury that former President Trump received, what treatment he may be receiving, what this will do to his ability to campaign. We certainly, of course, expect to see him in this coming week as the Republican National Convention is about to begin on Monday in Milwaukee. So RNC officials certainly trying to figure that out. But right now, the greatest concern is from that angle is the health of the former president. And of course, thoughts also turning now to the one spectator who was killed in this, another spectator who was in critical condition from a wound sustained during all this. NBC's Dasha Burns is just outside that Trump rally north of Pittsburgh. She has been giving us plenty of updates here. Dasha, as you've heard, we've now been able to confirm that at least one spectator has been killed in this, and the shooter himself is dead.
Lester, just for those who are joining us in this moment, just a reminder that our team, we were in the press pen when this happened. We were in front of a camera, just getting off camera as the former president started to speak. Just a few minutes into his speech, this transpired. We ran for cover as we were trying to figure out what exactly had happened, initially thinking it was fireworks, then realizing it could be something more serious. And now, of course, we know deadly. I am in the parking lot right now, just outside of this venue. This is where press and general attendees have had their cars parked. This is where we evacuated to when we were told to leave the site that is now a crime scene. And I've been running into witnesses here as people have been trying to find their cars, trying to make their way out. And that is where I ran into a man named Joseph, and I want to introduce him to you now. And as we just learned, Joseph, you weren't listening to the program here, but Lester Holt, NBC News, just reporting that one of the attendees has deceased, has died from injuries as a result of the shooting. Joseph, you told me off camera that you may have witnessed this, and I'm so sorry to be talking to you in this tragic moment, but can you describe what it is that you saw?
I was attending the rally. I was in the set of bleachers, the very far left of the podium where President Trump was speaking. I was there with friends. I heard several gunshots. The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head, was instantly killed, fell to the bottom of the bleachers. Another woman looked like she got hit in the forearm or hand. And then at that point in time, it was rather chaotic at that point because half the people were looking because they thought it was fireworks. I knew it was gunshots right away. My friend, he hit the deck. I was kind of looking around just trying to see where the shots were coming from. It seemed to me like the shots were coming from behind the bleachers. It seemed to me the man got hit in the head from behind. He was killed instantly, as far as I could tell. And at that point, a state police and a SWAT team, started evacuating the bleachers, and then I helped carry the man out of the bleachers to a tent that was behind the bleachers.
You helped carry the man yourself. What was his condition when you were carrying him?
He's deceased. He died.
How close were you to him?
A couple yards. It wasn't very far.
Did you know the man?
No, that's a complete stranger. They put a towel over his head and then carried him off.
And you said there was another woman nearby who was also injured. Where was she in relation to him?
I believe she was in the bleachers, either above me or just to the side of him. But it seemed like she was kind of at my flank, and then she flinched, and it looked like she had taken a gunshot wound to the forearm and hand.
Joseph, from where I was standing, we heard multiple gunshots, 8 to 11 shots. We've been hearing it replayed on the video here. Do you remember, can you tell, I know it was a chaotic scene, but at what point, was it immediately when you heard the gunshots that he was shot, or was it later on into the firing?
The first 7, he was hit and she was hit within the first 7 shots. I counted 7 shots.
What was going through your mind? You were right there. I know it happened so quickly, but what can you tell us about those moments?
First, I was in shock because I know what gunshots sound like, so I knew they were gunshots. I couldn't tell from where they were coming from. And when I noticed someone got hit, then I noticed, well, it seemed like they were coming from behind me, and it just was pandemonium. And then I heard some more shots. And I couldn't quite tell where they were coming from, but I counted the first 7. They were very loud and very close. And it killed one man and wounded another woman.
And Joseph, you told me that you're a doctor, you're an OBGYN. How did that background play into how quickly you were sort of able to assess the situation and know what happened to these individuals and know what was going on?
Well, I told the police, I tried to render assistance. I told the police I could render assistance. They had another physician on the EMT team, so they kind of took over. So they didn't really need me, so I kind of helped carry them down initially out of the bleachers. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, the man that got hit, there was no assistance that needed to be given. And unfortunately, his family witnessed the whole thing. It seemed like he had several family members in the bleacher with him. And they were quite upset. They were in shock. They didn't quite know what was going on. But the man was definitely killed instantaneously.
Could you tell us sort of how many family members or people who knew him were with him, and what was their reaction?
I thought there was 5 people. 2 of them were relatively hysterical. So, but they were, when we took the man out of the bleachers, he went to the tent. There was an aid tent or some type of tent behind the bleachers where they took the body, and they immediately evacuated the family with them. And the 2 out of the 5, it seemed, in shock, hysterical. They were still trying to process what was going on.
Joseph, from where I was standing, we heard the shots. We saw the president go down.
Yeah, I saw President Trump get hit.
Yeah. What can you tell us? What details you remember?
It seemed like his head was off to the side, and it seemed like he got nicked in the ear.
Was that before the Secret Service took him down to the ground, covered him?
Right before the Secret Service. I mean, it was maybe, again, it's hard to tell, time dilates when it seemed like it was a second or 2. Like that first 7 shots that went off, the man got hit, he was killed almost instantly. The woman in the bleachers, she got injured, like she got hit in the forearm and the hand. And then in those rounds that were fired, again, I was videoing the event, so that's when I saw Trump get hit. And it seemed to me like he was looking to the side and the round grazed his ear. So.
Could you tell the gentleman that was hit in the head what angle he was in relation to the former president, like which direction the bullets were coming from and to?
So it looked like he was facing the president at the very far left portion of the bleachers, so he's directly facing it. Again, it seemed to me like the shots were coming from the rear, like behind us. And for me, it seemed like the man was in the way. I guess...
In the way of the former president?
No, it seemed like the man was in the way of the shots between whoever was shooting the gun and the president. The man that was hit, it seemed like he was in the crossfire.
Let me get my shoes.
And I know, and I know you're in shock and still processing all of this. It's sort of hard to evaluate our own emotions in this moment, but you just experienced something horrific.
Yes.
What can you tell us about your state of mind right now?
Yeah, I've had opportunities to go to these rallies before. It was the first one I ever went to. I had, time off to go do it. I was kind of excited to go, but it's. Everyone, it's something you don't expect. It comes out of the blue. It's like a bolt out of the blue. The way politics goes in this country, it just seems like it's really polarized. Everyone's just very angry. I'm honestly shocked this didn't happen earlier. I was commenting to my friend who went to the event with me. I was like, the back behind the bleachers, it's really open. It seems like a really open venue. And it just, I got this sense that, if someone really wanted to do something, again, I was openly talking to her. And I was like, if something was bad was going to be happening, this is the perfect venue to have. I just said this like an hour before it happened. I was like, this would be the perfect place to do it. And, surprisingly enough, it happened.
A devastatingly prescient observation from you. Let me ask you one more question, because from where I was, there was confusion. Then Trump stood up and there were some cheers. And then people sort of remained, those that weren't in sort of the immediate zone where you were, people were still sort of cheering, talking, trying to figure out what was going on. How quickly did you know that whether or not there was still a dangerous situation? It seemed like people sort of started to try to move on very quickly, not sure what had happened, right? So how soon did you know whether or not it was even safe? Did you want to get out of there? What did you witness in sort of the immediate aftermath once the shots stopped?
Well, it seemed like the shots went off. Everyone thought it was a prank. Everyone, I think, got a sense, like when I looked out into the crowd, everyone thought I think the initial reaction, everyone thought it was a prank. I knew better it was a gunshot because I just saw a guy got hit. And it did.
For those of us that didn't see, it's some people started laughing, some people were confused. It wasn't immediately clear to the crowd that didn't witness what you witnessed, that this was in fact a dangerous and deadly situation.
Oh, it was a dangerous and deadly situation. The problem is it's a large crowd. And when the gunshots went off, I think they were, again, my sense was they were being shot from behind, so they sounded a bit muffled. So it sounded more like a firecracker going off. So I think the initial reaction from the people around me were like, okay, well, someone brought fireworks. I just knew better. I knew what gunshots sound like. And, when I saw the guy he took a gunshot wound to the head, and then I saw the woman who got hit in the forearm and the hand, I just knew that it wasn't fireworks. I mean, it wasn't fireworks initially, but I think the majority of the crowd didn't understand that it was gunfire. And, I think people took it really seriously when the SWAT team started jumping over the rails. So I don't know what to tell you outside of that.
Joseph, I know this. I can't imagine what it takes to describe what you just witnessed in these moments, right in the aftermath. So we thank you so much for sharing.
We're happy to.
Lester?
Yeah, Dasha, thank you for that account. I mean, no one should have to, fear for their life going to a political rally, something that is uniquely American. But these people have experienced the horror of someone opening fire on the crowd, and a former president who was, of course, the headliner at this rally tonight. As we've been reporting, one spectator is dead, another is in critical condition. The shooter, this all according to the Butler County DA, the shooter is also deceased. Our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, joins us again. Kelly, you have a new statement from President Biden.
That's correct, Lester. This is from President Biden, who is in Rehoboth, and he talks about this incident. He begins by saying, I've been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who are at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it. The words of Joe Biden after learning about this incident involving his predecessor and his current rival in the political environment of this 2024 campaign. The president has been briefed by top officials. He has been talking with Homeland Security officials, and he is at his home in Rehoboth, Delaware, where he has a full complement of the things needed for the office, where he can get the income streams of all the relevant information. This first statement coming from President Biden, I would not be at all surprised if we don't hear more from him tonight as new developments take place. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thank you for that. Terry Schultz is with the Butler County, Pennsylvania District Attorney's Office and was at the rally. She is still there and joins me on the phone. Terry, first of all, if you can just walk us through what you saw, where you were in this crowd.
You know what? We didn't have VIP seats. We were a few rows back. Enough that we could, see the former president, and then we were all standing there watching the jumbotrons. They had put him on, and the next thing we did was we hear 3 shots. I see kind of his head, the former president's head, go sideways. You can see kind of like, blood. And at that point, I wasn't looking at anything. I was with some friends. They were like, you need to get down. Everybody get down. The people around me, there were some young people crying. And to be honest with you, at the time this happened, I wasn't even sure they were gunshots. But then we heard like 3 or 4 shots, and then we heard shots kind of returned. A friend of mine videotaped that, and we just watched that, and that's what we saw and what we heard.
From your vantage point, were you able to see where the shots were coming from? Was it obvious?
It was not, but you could hear them, and as soon as you heard the shots, your head turned towards the left. We have a route that runs outside the Butler Farm Show, Route 68, and it sounded like the shots were coming from out there near the field to the left-hand side of where we were. So it certainly was scary.
You know, we look at the videotape, and it appears some people didn't quite realize what was happening at the moment. Were you one of them who was not quite sure what you were witnessing?
It's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's
absolutely.
take a look at
and again, until I was with some friends, and my girlfriend is like, you have to get down. People around us were pulling us down and saying, you have to get down. So I can tell you that it was chaos at the time.
Have you been to one of these rallies before?
I have not. It was my first time at a rally, and I was certainly excited, to go to one. We had so many people there. But I can tell you the chaos that this created. Everyone was scared. You see the former president and what's happening, and and then when I ascertained what had happened from some of my Pennsylvania State Police friends, it was very scary. But it was my understanding that they got the shooter. But that really doesn't make a difference, because it was just. It was very scary, but it was my understanding that they got the shooter. But that really doesn't make a difference, because it was just.
The shooter is deceased, and again, one of the spectators as well, and one critically hurt a spectator, and the former president is going to be okay. But you bring up a point I think we will all be talking about, and that is, of course, we don't know what the motivation was for this, but it certainly comes at a time that we are all keenly aware of the deep divisions and the risk of political violence. Is it something you even thought about as you set out to attend this rally tonight?
To be honest with you, no, not at all. I guess I know that there's political unrest in the country, but in no way did I think that this would happen. And what concerns me more is it's not only political, but there are innocent people here. And look what happened. And it should just never happen in our country. It really should not.
Your point is certainly well taken. I know you're with the DA's office there. Do you have any special insight into how the investigation is proceeding?
Well, I know that I'm seeing a lot of news trucks around here. I know that there were tons of Secret Service here. And again, I guess for me, I just question how somebody got through security, or where this person was in a field that somebody wasn't looking after them. And I guess that's just me and from my perspective of what I do.
Yeah. All right. Terry, thank you very much as we continue to look at some of the pictures of the aftermath. We've shown you some of the pictures of the aftermath. We've shown you some of the still photos as well of people crouched down for safety, not sure at that moment where the threat was coming from. I want to tell you, we are hearing that we will hear from the president. We read his statement a few minutes ago. We will hear from President Biden at some point this evening. We don't have a firm time on that, but we'll keep you honest and let you know when we know more about that. In the meantime, let me bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. Hallie, we're all shocked and certainly saddened over the loss of life here and the injuries, and we're certainly grateful that the former president is okay. But This is going to be a very tough conversation in the weeks coming forward, one we've had on different levels before. Share your thoughts, if you would.
Yeah, and none of it, of course, taking away, Lester, from, as you described, the urgency and frankly, the devastation of this moment, given what we have now learned about what has happened at this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. I can tell you that our team here at NBC News is out to a myriad of campaign sources close to former President Trump. And obviously, the latest that we've heard, and you've been reporting this, is that he is okay. He is, in the words of a spokesperson, fine and being looked at. We are seeking more information. I can also tell you that based on a message to staff obtained by our colleagues here at NBC, Alan Smith and Matt Dixon, a top campaign official is telling staff members that everything is okay, that we have no details to share at this time, but saying they'll follow up soon with more information. They are directing staff members to not speak with members of the media. They want what they describe as a total lockdown here. They add that your personal safety is of the utmost importance here, to pray, remain vigilant, and be strong. That is the messaging now, according to NBC News, that Trump campaign staff members are getting from the top, as there is just, it is always, of course, it is chaotic in the moments after something like this happens. And it's also, I think, another reason to be extraordinarily careful in what and how we report what we know has occurred here in what is just a historic day here in the United States, Lester.
Yeah, and then, of course, Hallie, we are here in the weekend before the Republican National Convention. Obviously, there will be some changes. We don't know what is in effect, but we're hitting primetime campaign season now.
Yeah, we sure are, right? And this is a moment where everybody begins to pay attention, especially considering the start of the convention. I mean, think about it, Lester, not looking at the time here just after 8 o'clock Eastern, not maybe 3+ hours ago. You know, the biggest story that I think most campaign reporters were chasing was who would Donald Trump pick to be his running mate. That was sort of much of the attention here on this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The conversation has clearly and necessarily changed very dramatically since then. I think one of the questions moving forward is going to be the movements of former President Trump. How long is he going to remain at the medical facility where he's at now? Where will he head after that? Does he still plan to be at the Republican National Convention starting on Monday? Obviously, that kicks off in Milwaukee with the expectation that at some point between now and of course, next week, he would announce his vice presidential pick. That is obviously taking a back seat to the immediate question of his own health and safety, as he is the presumptive Republican nominee here. And we are going to try to get some answers to those questions just as soon as we can, Lester.
All right, Hallie, we'll ask you to stand by. Thanks. Let me bring in Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press. She's in Washington. Kristen, you're learning a little more from the Biden campaign, their immediate reaction to this.
Lester, we are, and our Monica Alba, who covers the Biden campaign, has this reporting that according to a campaign official, the Biden campaign is pausing all outbound communications and working to pull down our television ads as quickly as possible. And Lester, this underscores part of the conversation we were having earlier, which is that this is a moment that brings the country together in shock, in condemnation for this political violence. We are hearing from all quarters of the political universe, including some of those who have been quite critical of former President Trump. Liz Cheney, for example, saying the reports of the shooting in Pennsylvania are horrifying. Violence of any kind has no place in American politics. We are grateful for the reaction of the Secret Service and other law enforcement and pray for the former president and all those injured. Similar messages from former President George W. Bush, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and on, Lester. And it does come on the eve of the Republican National Convention. Former President Trump, his campaign apparatus, Republicans all over the country poised to go to Milwaukee to officially nominate former President Trump as their party's nominee. And as Hallie was just saying, we anticipated and we were working on trying to determine who the former president would pick to serve as his vice presidential nominee. And now, of course, the focus has shifted to this horrifying topic of political violence and what this country needs to do to prevent something like this from happening again, Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker. Kristen, thanks very much. Let me reset here for our viewers just joining us on this Saturday evening. We are on the air with breaking news. There has been a shooting at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally this evening. The former president has been injured. How he was injured is not clear at this time. I want to pause here. We're going to roll the video of what happened just shortly after 6 p.m. here in the East. while Mr. Trump was speaking. Here it is.
A bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. We ready? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move? Shooters down. We're good to move. We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Come on.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold on, your head is bloody.
So we got to go move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down.
Watch out.
Wait.
I want to bring in now Evie Pouris, a former Secret Service agent. We thank you for joining us again. We hear at one point, I didn't hear this in the earlier recordings, we hear at one point one of the tactical clothed individuals say the shooter is down. As you watch that unfold, I take it they were not prepared to move him until they knew where the threat was.
Yes, you can hear that clear line of communication, and the communication is very clear and succinct. Can we move? Are we clear? You hear shooters down, and you hear, are we clear to move? Clear to move. So you're hearing them speak to one another. And radio communication is one of the most important things. Actually, when it comes to comms, you always want to say less. So you can hear them using very simple words, 3, 4 words. They just want to keep those airwaves clear so that the most important vital communication can pass. So they're making sure they hunker down. You see them surround him. He goes down to the ground. They all surround him. Again, when you're an agent, you're supposed to be a human shield. And in that moment, that is what they become. They become human shield. Your job in that moment is to protect your protectee, whoever that protectee is. So they all encompass him. And the other thing you do, you are designed to actually make yourself as big as possible to make sure that any potential rounds or shots that come, you don't want them to miss you and hit your protectee. So as they're hunkered down, they're locking him down. And if you look at the shot, actually, there's a shot where you can see the front of the stage, and around it, you'll see that design, that almost like a smaller, like a design barrier. It's got the flag around it. That typically, and I can't say whether it is or is not in this case, but in some scenarios, when you work as a side agent, you will pick a barricade that's actually something strong and sturdy. It could be concrete or steel. Usually it's some type of steel, and that is used for that when something does happen, unfortunately, like we're seeing here, they can actually get down to the ground so that they have some type of cover.
Evie, thanks. Really important information we're learning from you. I want to let folks know we believe moments away from hearing President Biden. He is going to stand at that podium, and we believe this is in Delaware. Somebody can confirm for me. But he will address the nation about these events tonight in Florida. The shooting that apparently wounded former President Trump, who is said to be okay. It killed a spectator, wounded another who's in critical, is said to be deceased as well. This story has been rolling out. Here is the president.
Thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to give it, if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well. Number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay?
Mr. President, do you think there was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried, President, was the security failing, Mr. President?
The president stopping short of calling this an assassination attempt, but just noting that he plans to talk to Donald Trump and that his understanding is the former president is doing well. President Biden speaking out against the scourge of political violence, saying there's no room for this. And as we had reported a few moments ago, the Biden campaign moving to take down its advertising, a pause in its political advertising in the wake of this. We know that the president couldn't confirm, but we have confirmed that at least 2 spectators were shot, 1 killed, another who is in critical condition, and again, the shooter, who we don't know a lot about right now, is also deceased. Let me go back to Kristen Welker in our Washington, D.C. bureau. The White House getting out in front of this very quickly, Kristen.
Lester, they sure are, and President Biden condemning this in the strongest terms possible, which is what you would anticipated. He has long condemned political violence. He said this is unheard of. Everybody must condemn it. He did say he had tried to speak with the former president, whom he referred to as Donald. He also noted, Lester, that he is receiving thorough, robust briefings from his national security team, from his federal agencies, and that will undoubtedly continue throughout the night. The White House will undoubtedly need to keep the public informed throughout the night. It comes, as you point out, as they have pulled down and are working to pull down all of their ads, as the Trump campaign is in a media blackout. And it speaks to, Lester, the seriousness of this moment, the gravity of this moment, the fact that, quite frankly, something has just shifted in our American politics, in our country. This act of political violence, which, as the president said, cannot and will not be tolerated. And it does come as everyone is preparing to go to Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, another event that will be met with heavy security. The perimeter there will be quite strong, quite large. Getting into the actual area where the convention is taking place will undoubtedly require going through magnetiles, making sure that no one is armed going into that event. But again, Lester, this just underscores, I think, that something fundamental has really shifted in our American politics today. Yeah, it's certainly, the threat has been talked about, but to see it play out on this scale is certainly horrifying. Kristen, thank you for that. We'll go back to you in a bit. Let's bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. You have a statement from Donald Trump Jr., the former president's son.
Yeah, via a spokesperson to our colleague Peter Nicholas, that you heard President Biden say he tried to reach former President Trump on the phone. We know that the former president's son has spoken with him in a statement saying they just talked on the phone, with Donald Trump Jr. saying that his dad is in great spirits, that he will never stop fighting to save America, no matter what in Donald Trump Jr.'s words, no matter what the radical left throws at him. So what we can glean from this, a couple of things, that former President Trump is, as his campaign says, fine. He is well enough to speak. He is well enough to be on the phone, at least with his immediate family members, at least with his son, Donald Trump Jr. We know that he is receiving medical treatment at a local facility with this rally happening, of course, in Butler, Pennsylvania. And we know that there has been a slew of reaction, as Kristen, as you, as others have talked about from both sides of the aisle here, strongly condemning political violence after this very difficult day in American politics. Lester, we'll keep you updated as we get more.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Kit Tom, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, was just a few yards from the former president when the shots rang out. Thank you for joining us, sir. Can you tell us what you saw?
Well, I was just with the president a few moments earlier before he came on stage, and everything seemed like a normal day. But when he walked down that red carpet and walked up to the podium, and after he spoke for about 10 minutes, I was sitting in the front row at the end of the runway, but all of a sudden these shots broke out. And I think there was people that actually thought it was possibly fireworks, but I seen the gun smoke. And obviously, there was a person about 15 foot behind me that was hit. So I think severely wounded at the least. But nonetheless, the crowd stayed pretty calm for the most part. And but it sounded like there was 6, 7 shots to start with, and then it seemed like there was a little pause. And then we heard a different caliber gun fired, which I assume is probably the Secret Service. But then I thought I heard another couple of rounds come off, but it felt like it was behind me. But it could have been the echo.
Did you hear did President Trump say anything?
No, he was just giving the typical rally speech that he typically does everywhere, and trying to encourage voters to get out and vote and talking about his plan for America.
But as the shots rang out, did he cry out? Did someone tell him to get down, or was that instinctive?
Yeah, we heard that. We heard everybody say get down, but I think he was already going down. That's when everybody thought at first maybe he had been hit more severely than he was. I mean, it's already severe. And let's face it, it hit his ear. It could have been a little bit closer. It could have been disastrous. But when he went down to the ground, then he got up, he put his fist up in the air or his hand up in the air. So we knew he was okay.
There are presumably, at least it appears to be, a lot of people in that crowd. By now, you have heard that one spectator was killed and others critically wounded. Has it settled in of how close a brush everybody in that arena or setting came tonight?
Yeah, there was a lot. It was interesting listening to the people as they departed the scene, and what was going through my mind, and of course being a little older than many of those that were there, but I was recalling the Kennedy assassinations and some of the other attempts that were made during my lifetime, and I was recalling those and thinking about those, and then moving forward to where we're at today, and we still have a problem with this. So it's shocking, but most people are pretty upset. There's no question about it.
Understandably. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time being with us. We're glad you and yours are safe after this tonight. Retired ATF Special Agent Jim Cavanaugh is with me. By now, as you know, we've been reporting that the shooter in this case is deceased, presumably shot by law enforcement. I think the next question will be, is this a lone operator, the proverbial lone wolf, or is this part of some kind of conspiracy? Those are two different things. How will they begin to get, at least put the dots together?
Yeah, well, let's start with the deceased shooter, Lester, and identify him, and then, sweep his personal devices, phone, computer, et cetera, for, associates, Confederates, and start interviewing around the circle. reporters and the witnesses since we last talked, and it appears that maybe the shooter. It seemed like to me, watching the video closely, that the first shot or two is where the President Trump reacts.
Hey, Jim, let me just stop you for a second. I just received a new piece of information that I want to get your thoughts on. We're now from a confirmed source that the shooter was actually firing from outside the perimeter. That changes a lot in terms of the security posture at these things, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but what's surprising to me is that a shooter could get in an elevated position at any kind of a Secret Service event, because the first thing that the service does is they get all the elevated positions and they put their sniper teams up there and lookers with binoculars and rifles. So it does seem from the witnesses that this was a distant shot now, that the reason the shot wasn't as loud, it was further off in the distance. And it looked like, watching the video, Lester, closely, that when the president turned his head to the right, the first shot or second shot, the first pop or two, is when he grabs his right ear. And then he, on his own volition, goes down, squats down. Now, he doesn't fall down, he just squats down. But you can see at that same moment that the spectators
heard that gunfire on the tape, said they were certain it was probably a ways away from the actual venue outside the security zone, and it sounds like that has proven to be true. There were several shots you could hear, and they were very distinct, at least 2 or 3, possibly more shots, and we don't know yet whether we were hearing not just the shooter, but those who then took out the shooter. But when I look at this video, and we've all looked at it over and over, and you see President Trump get up and put that fist in the air. We've now heard from his family. We now have heard that former President Trump is okay. But this is an incredibly sobering moment for former President Trump, for his family, and for the country. There is always a possibility something can go wrong. He is surrounded by security doing the best job they possibly can, the Secret Service, but these things can happen. And when he goes out there again, he is going to be thinking of this, whether he keeps that fist in the air, whether you can't keep him down. This is something that has got to be in the back of your mind. Back in 2016, just 4 days before the election back there, he was taken off the stage by Secret Service when someone shouted gun. There wasn't a gun. He was okay. Nothing happened. But even that, I mean, you can see that moment of fear in someone's eyes, and they have a right to be afraid in something like this. I also think what we're going to have to see in the coming days, and we talk about this divided country, we talk about this heinous act, is who this shooter is, what the motive actually was, where they come from, why they did this. This will be pivotal and how the country reacts, how former President Trump's supporters act. This is something we really have to keep our eyes on in the coming days.
And not to mention the serious questions about security. I know you and many of us have been to these Trump rallies before, and you go through so much security to get inside the venue and the metal detectors, and they check your bags and everything. There are prohibited items, things you cannot bring inside. But to get this information from the DA now that the suspect was on top of a roof adjacent to the venue, that raises serious questions about whether something, a potential threat, was overlooked.
Well, I think, again, you cannot protect someone from everybody. There are ways to get to people. I think on the venue itself, obviously, and we've all been there, and they go through the magnetometer. But if you are a long way away and you have a weapon, I know certainly they have probably snipers positioned in certain places, but I've been to events too and think, oh, wow, look at that building over there. Someone could get up there. I hope they have somebody there. They are not in every single spot at every single rally. And that's what people take advantage of. I mean, I think the Secret Service would be the first to say we do our absolute best. We lock down what we can, but people keep trying and they keep trying to get in. But we will learn more on that too. Any kind of investigation going forward, which will take weeks, months, probably years, how this happened.
Yes, this is just the very beginning. Martha Raddatz, thank you so much. I do want to go back to another witness here, Stephen Lasko, who was at the Trump rally. Stephen, if you can hear me, I understand you were only about 100 feet away from the former president. Describe what you saw and what you heard.
About 100 feet away from him, could see his face. He was right there talking, having a good time. And, you heard one shot, two shot. It sounded like, bang, nothing crazy. And then you heard maybe 3 or 4 more. And that's when everyone got quiet, started panicking. Trump dropped right to the floor. I guess Secret Service jumped on top of him and shielded him. But, as soon as everyone in the crowd figured out what was going on, we all ducked, and my buddies just jumped on top of me, piled on top of me. And we had no idea what was going on. You're in total shock. You're shook, and, you can't feel your legs. But we were trying to decide if we wanted to get up and run, and we had really no idea what to do. And next thing you know, you see bullets, or you hear bullets flying, and I believe a bullet hit the hydraulic lift that was holding up the speakers, and that thing almost collapsed. There was hydraulic fluid and water spitting everywhere all over the crowd. And then before you know it, everyone just gets up and starts running. But
and
Trump
Stephen,
did stand.
Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay, but on that note about everybody getting up and running, we're actually showing video that you shot on your cell phone. And this is the moment with people running out of the venue. Describe what that was like, and when were you actually able to get out?
It was pretty stressful. I'm looking around trying to make sure all my buddies who came with me were with me. And, it took probably a good 10 minutes to get out of there, to get out of the whole area. And, before you know it, there's ATVs and UTVs flying and ambulances and all that kind of stuff. And we're trying to figure out how to get out of there and get home. But we made it. And when we walked out to the road, they had, police blocking everything off. And we actually found out where the building was that the shooter was shooting from. They had it all taped off. I guess it was like an agricultural warehouse, something like that. It was pretty scary. It's like you're in the movies.
Stephen, forgive me again. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay with the connection, but did you say that you were able to see the building that the shooter was allegedly perched on top of here? You said it was taped off by law enforcement. What did it look like?
It was like a kind of like an airplane hangar, maybe, like a warehouse for agricultural equipment, I guess. ARC, AGC, something like that on the side. But once we were out, maybe 30, 40 minutes after, they were taping it off, investigating it. They had the dogs going and all that stuff. There was traffic jams everywhere. It was kind of hard to.
How far away was that area from where the former president was standing?
Maybe 300, 400 yards, maybe less, honestly.
And Stephen, when you hear that people who were there in the crowd with you, other bystanders, at least one, maybe more, were killed, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, still kind of numb to it. It's hard to process all this. Your heart rate is through the roof, but best wishes for their family, and they were supporting the country that they love. And in the meantime, it's definitely sad, and it's heartbreaking, honestly.
And Stephen, we've been hearing from people on both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, independent candidate, RFK Jr., and all with the same sentiment, condemning political violence, saying there's no place in this country for something like this. And I just wonder, from your perspective too, you're out there, you're exercising your right to support a candidate. What message do you have for people out there? Because the country is at this political boiling point. There's so much division and anger and hatred right now from one side and the other. What would you like to tell people?
At the end of the day, whether you're on the left, the right, the center, or you don't believe in politics at all, we all still put our pants on in the morning. We all breathe the air and go to work, and a lot of these issues, in 10 years, no one even thinks about them or cares about them. So we're all people at the end of the day, and it's not worth taking someone's life over political beliefs or whatever. It's just senseless.
Well, Stephen, I think many people would agree with those words. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing that video, and we're so glad and thankful that you and the people you were there with are doing okay. Thanks again.
Of course, and as Kelly Clarkson says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Well, let's hope that that's what happens in this country from here forward. The country definitely needs a moment of healing as we work closer and closer to Election Day. Stephen, thank you again. Let's go back to Rachel Scott. I believe she's still there in Pennsylvania. She was at this event, and Rachel, you've been speaking with witnesses. And who are you with right now?
Yeah, I'm with a woman named Erin. You were in the very first row in the middle seat, you told me. What did you see? What did you witness?
I was in the first row, and I was in the middle. I was directly in front of President Trump. So I saw him come on the stage, and it was maybe about 3 or 4 minutes. Everybody, all the photographers saw him come in. They all cleared away. He started speaking, and then we heard pound, pound, pop, pop, pop. In everybody's mind, it was like 4th of July. Somebody must have been still doing firecrackers. Then I saw the 4 Secret Service jump up and immediately push him to the ground. Then the news people that were around him, they all fell to the ground. There was 4 of them down there, and then we all stood up. None of us moved. We wanted to protect President Trump. Sorry, helicopter's landing. Then I saw the gentlemen who wear the guns and the black. They came on and they said, okay, clear right, clear left. On 3, we're going to lift them. So they lifted President Trump up, and he said, I got to get my shoes. His shoes must have fallen off when they pushed him down. I saw the red blood on his right cheek. Then when he turned, I saw the ear from the top to the bottom with red.
Erin, I'm just going to have the camera turn really quickly because we are seeing a helicopter landing. For everyone that is watching at home, this is obviously still an active crime scene where we are all standing right now. We are just yards away from where this rally was taking place. We're seeing a helicopter touchdown. We've obviously seen more and more police presence in the last hour following these events that occurred. And there are still supporters that are still trying to leave this area. You are one of them. There were hundreds of people here, and so the parking lots were very full. There was a line to get out, and so there's a little bit of a traffic jam also as well. So you described those moments. You heard the pop, pop, pop. Everyone went down for cover. How are you feeling? How are you processing this?
Well, everybody in the first row, nobody went down to the ground. They all stood up. They wanted to protect the president. All we were concerned about was him. And then kind of the Secret Service, when he got up and got into the vehicle, they told us to sit and stay seated because there was things going on. And from what I hear, there was possibly 2 shooters. There's a gentleman here that has a picture of one of the shooters that was rolled off of a building. And he was shot by the sharpshooters that were behind Trump. And I saw a gentleman leave from the left stands, and he had red blood all down his shirt. He wasn't hit, but I think he was around somebody who was. So just picking up little bits of things. We're all in shock because we never expected this. I mean, it's a beautiful rally, a beautiful night. I don't know. If no one's ever been to a Trump rally, it's very congenial. People look out for each other. It just seems like there's you don't see any fights and you don't see any animosity and you don't see too much. They're all pretty much focused on the president. And then with this to happen, it's just stressful. It's just sad, very sad.
This is an open fairground where we are standing here. It was a very hot day. People were coming in with their water bottles. As you said, there was this sense of sort of joy, excitement to see the former president. All of this unfolded within minutes of him taking the stage.
I don't think it was 3 to 4 minutes, I would say. He hardly got a chance to do his, waving at everybody and welcome and maybe a couple words on the teleprompter. But some people tell me that they think one of the shots hit the teleprompter and that could have made him with the cheek.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of unconfirmed reports still out there. We're also sorting through this.
He did leave the stage on his own. He walked down the steps. I saw that. And then he put his right hand up and fist up and said, "Stay strong, everyone." And he kind of turned like he was exiting. He was making sure that all those people like us that were standing up knew that he was okay.
Well, we so appreciate you taking the time, and I know you were waiting to clear out from this area as well.
Everybody's just praying for our president. That's how everybody is here. So thank you.
We're so happy that you are safe. Please get home safe. Again, that is just one of the many witnesses that we've been talking to here that are leaving these fairgrounds now after this incident occurred. As you can tell, still a little shaken up there, still processing what happened, replaying those events in our minds for what we all heard, that sound of the pop, 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 people rushing, taking cover, seeing the former president being rushed off the stage, and then ultimately all of us being rushed out of this area. Many members that were inside, many of the Trump supporters are still waiting to leave here with.
Yeah, you get the sense as we've been talking to them one after another, many still in shock. I mean, how do you process such a thing, right? Something you don't expect like this act of violence. Rachel Scott Forrest, once again, thank you so much. I do want to bring in John David Longo, the mayor of Slippery Rock, who was with former President Trump right before the rally. Mayor, if you can hear me, where were you when the shots rang out?
I was just left of the stage, sir. So to the right of the president, I was front row there, right on the barrier when the shots rang out, and still trying to piece that together. I heard those sounds, and immediately I thought I knew what I heard, but I didn't want to believe it. And I thought for sure it might have been a firecracker or a gag, but by the time I heard the second one, my ears recognized the sound, and it's just a very sad situation to be in. I put my wife down to the ground and covered her up, and everybody around us, we're making sure that everybody was low to the ground and staying still and out of the way so that our law enforcement officers and Secret Service could understand the situation while I also was scanning because we weren't quite sure exactly at that time where the fire was coming from.
And forgive me, Mayor, I couldn't hear you for a second. Did you say that as you were hearing the gunshots and everybody dove to the ground, that you dove down and tried to cover up your wife?
I did. I tried to cover up my pregnant wife. We just found out we were expecting a few weeks ago, and I came here with her and my family today to come and bring them to hear President Trump speak. And my wife and I were blessed enough to be able to meet the president 15 to 20 minutes before he took the stage, and had a pleasant conversation with him, and it was all smiles. And of course, that was stolen from us when this maniac decided to do what he did. And unfortunately, somebody in the bleachers right behind us was murdered by this monster.
And what's your reaction to that, to learn that at least one person lost their life today, who was just there at the same rally that you were attending?
It's sad does not describe, what that feeling is. This individual came here likely with a smile on their face, looking for hope and inspiration, looking to hear from President Trump in a place that is deep in the territory of blood red Trump country, and he did not get to leave here today with his life, and now his loved ones are probably wondering just how it is that something like this could have been possible.
Mayor John David Longo from Slippery Rock, thank you so much for your time, and we're thankful that you and your family are okay tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's turn now to Paul Eckloff, former Secret Service for both former President Trump and for Obama. Talk to me about this investigation as it stands now. Obviously, we've had reports that the Secret Service, other law enforcement agencies are treating this as an attempted assassination unless they hear otherwise. How is an investigation like this pursued from here on?
Yes, sir. These cases are exactly what the Secret Service trains day in and day out for. Unfortunately, it puts into sharp focus that the Secret Service as we know it today exists due to a history of political violence in this country, and they work tirelessly every day to prevent anything but the peaceful transfer of power. In this case, the Secret Service prepares for these contingencies by having agents in place for crime scene prevention, and they perform what's known as an interim federal presence before the FBI conducts the actual investigation on an assassination attempt.
Paul, thank you so much. Forgive me. Stand by for a moment because we're just getting new information right now. I want to go back to John Carl in Milwaukee. John, you're learning more from Trump himself.
From Donald Trump. I'm going to read it to you in its entirety, Whit. He says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known. This is Donald Trump saying nothing is known at the time about the shooter who is now dead. And here's key new information in this statement from Donald Trump. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place. So I realized what was happening, and then he ends it, God bless America. So a statement from Donald Trump that he has posted on social media saying that he was shot in the right ear by one of the bullets as they went by, much bleeding, and expressing his condolences to somebody at the rally who was killed, another person that was injured. That statement from Donald Trump.
And now John, as you've been with us for hours now, it's the puzzle pieces are starting to come together, at least in terms of the event today and what happened. You know, we don't have the who and the why yet, but we're starting to get the how and how this all played out tonight, because we saw earlier those images of the former president with the blood trickling down the right side of his face. We saw him flinching as he was speaking when the shots first rang out, and then reaching for his right ear, and then now that confirmation from the former president himself. And John, I know that politics isn't really at the center of the conversation in this moment, but I can't help but just point out that you're standing in Milwaukee, you know, at the headquarters of what is supposed to be the Republican National Convention this week, major events that were supposed to take place. How do you expect that not only the Trump campaign, but the Biden campaign will then respond to all of this? What did the next few days and weeks look like on the campaign trail?
I mean, what we're seeing immediately is a pause to the political, to this very heightened stage of this campaign. The Biden campaign has said that they have they've closed off all outbound communication. They're attempting to take down their television advertising across the country right now. We've seen statements come in from across the political spectrum. Former presidents, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, the current president, Joe Biden, who we've heard from both in a statement and in a live statement to the country, condemning what has happened, offering their well wishes, prayers for Donald Trump and for those who were at his rally. We're seeing this from people who are Trump's allies, from those who are adamantly opposed to him. But there's something else we're seeing that I have to say. We're already seeing some very divisive rhetoric in an attempt to politicize what has been roundly condemned by everybody. You have seen some of the president's allies suggest that Joe Biden himself bears responsibility because of the rhetoric that we've seen in this campaign. We saw a statement to that extent coming from J.D. Vance, one of those who's waiting right now to find out if he's going to be Donald Trump's running mate. We've seen a member of Congress say much the same, except directly pinning the blame on President Biden. So for now, across the political spectrum, a pause, universal condemnation, but the early indications are that that's just not going to last very long. It could get ugly very soon. There should be a moment where the country has a wake-up call that the the hateful rhetoric that we have seen across the political spectrum,